So I'm posting from my office today, so bear with me. It's a mess. But I was gonna share with you something that I had remembered when I was looking at some of your guys' videos. I noticed that a lot of you who are at the DaVitas have the new machines. And the new machines, the bicarb hooks up to the side instead of over at the bottom, those big containers. It hooks up to this little container over on the side. Now with these ones, our DaVita decided to try to save money by ordering these plastic ones that break really easy. And so there's two plastic ones. There's one that's really hard and there's one that breaks easy. I came in one day and there was this nice stream of water going from my machine over to their desk. And I asked the tech what was going on, and she said, oh yeah, that's DaVita's way of saving money. And she went and grabbed me both the bicarbs. She grabbed me one of the new ones and one of the old ones, and she said, feel this. And the old one was thick and it had no give to it, no nothing. Like, you were not going to break that unless you literally took it and smashed it on the floor. The new one was squishy. Like, it wasn't squishy, but you could definitely, it had give. If you even squeezed it too hard, it was going to break. And so I had dealt with a few of these being broken over the time that they had got these new machines, which I don't know how that was ever going to save DaVita money, but whatever they thought. Maybe your guys' techs were a little more careful than ours were. But our DaVita, really crappy. So anyway, what I was going to talk about was I had posted something about how our techs were pretty much using people as guinea pigs by letting these new people train on them and not watching them. And when I posted that, I had this crazy woman get on there and say, oh yeah, that's why it's called practicing medicine. This is what we do. I'm horrified, first off, that she works in medical and she's perfectly fine with this. As a patient, as somebody who went through dialysis, if I go in there and somebody doesn't know what they're doing, there's a problem. Dialysis has been around for a very long time. You should know what you're doing. You should not be on that floor without knowing what you are doing. You are not going in to practice on people. You should know when you go on that floor what you were supposed to be doing. So I was next to an elderly person for a few years. Loved this elderly man because he had quite the attitude. He always hated new people touching him. And I agreed with that, but they didn't let the new people touch me very often because I was very vocal about not wanting touched by being it. So they let new people usually practice on him. And I don't know why they did it, because he was pretty vocal too, and he would cuss them out. But one day they did let a new person hook him up. And she was supposed to be being supervised, but of course the person watching her was over on the other end of the building hooking somebody else up. So he's getting hooked up. This woman set his machine for, I think, a pool of 5 kilograms. And now he is somebody who makes urine and he never has a pool. So they never pull anything off. They maintain him. So not long into his treatment, it wasn't even an hour into his treatment, this man passes out. And the nurse didn't notice it at first. She comes over, she's checking him. His blood pressure finally took, and that's when they realized, when his machine started alarming. And so she starts yelling his name and shaking him, and nothing's working. And so a bunch of people come over. Turns out his heart was stopping every few minutes. When they would bring him back, they'd give him a whole bunch of saline, it would happen again. And so these guys, instead of calling an ambulance, they just kept trying to bring him back on their own. So it happened 3 times. By the 3rd time, they thought, okay, he's good, he's brought back. The techs and the nurses went back to where they were at, and this one nurse stayed with him. And she was just watching the machine. It wasn't like she was trying to hang out with him, but check on him. She was just staying there with the machine, checking it out, and making sure it was running okay. So he goes out for a 3rd time. And I said, you need to call an ambulance and his wife, or I'm going to call an ambulance. She was ignoring me, and I said, okay, well, I'm calling an ambulance, and that's that. And then all of a sudden, they're like, no, we're going to call an ambulance. They called an ambulance, and they did not tell the ambulance what had happened. They just said he passed out. Didn't tell them why, didn't do any of that. So he was taken over to the hospital. Next time I saw him, I was in the waiting room with him a few days later, and I asked him if he knew what had happened. And he said, no, they just told me that I passed out because of my heart, and there was some stuff wrong. And I was like, no, Like, friend, you passed out because of these guys. You passed out because they set you too high. And he had no idea that any of this happened. So he ended up, thankfully, telling his wife what was going on. But my whole point is, if there's nobody there, DaVita will not cover, like, they won't call the ambulance, they won't do any of that. And it's only to cover their own tracks. Why else wouldn't they tell the ambulance, hey, we pulled too much off him? Why weren't they calling his wife? Why were they not doing any of that? They were letting him go out, stop breathing, stop his heart on this freaking machine without calling the hospital, because they knew what they had done wrong. They knew this person shouldn't have been hooking him up. They knew she should have been supervised. They were doing nothing about this bullshit. And it's just ridiculous. Patients are not lab rats. They're not going to be treated like that. That's just crazy. If you have anybody in freaking DaVita or any of these dialysis centers, for the love of God, pay attention to what's going on with them. Because who knows how many are like DaVita? How many are letting them pass out, or not giving them the right medications, or lying about what they're giving them? I didn't know half the shit. I was there. I was there with them doing this shit to me, and I had no idea without having my medical records. It's just insane, but for the love of God, watch what they're doing to your loved ones, because it's so hard to tell.